I decided to create this YouTube video because I've noticed over the years in my communicating about climate change, I've seen people posting basically a lot of stuff that's not true, and most of this stuff is coming from websites and other news sources that just are not reliable. So I think there seems to be a flaw in people's ability to critically analyze their news sources. So in my climate change course, we actually do that. We actually take a look at what organizations can you trust for your information, which authors are credible, who's noted in their scientific field. But I've noticed with the recent COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic that once again, we're seeing people who are putting things out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, certain news channels that are posting things that are actually causing people to die. So I decided that I would make this short YouTube video to try to help you understand where you should be getting your news from. And hopefully you're not getting it from a website that is feeding you what they think you want to eat, or worse, just sheer propaganda. There are a lot of different images out there that will try to help you determine which news sources to trust. One of the most popular ones is this one right here called the media bias chart. I'm going to show you three others, and they're all kind of similar. The reason I like to lead with this one is I think it's the easiest one to understand. It has a lot of pretty colors, which we all like, right? So basically how you read this is the higher up on the chart you go, the more you're just getting original facts. You're not getting opinions. It's basically, here's what happened, here's who said it. They're not going to tell you what does it mean, or they're not going to try to feed you their opinion. So the higher up you go, the better. So of course, down here we see the National Enquirer, the aliens stole my baby kind of stuff. We know that stuff is all BS. It's not true. So we're not surprised they're way down here. We also then have to go looking it to the right and to the left. Now, as you move toward the left, it means there's more and more of a slant toward Democrat progressive politics, maybe liberal charged words. They might say, oh, those, right wingers or things like that. Whereas if you go to the right here, you're getting more and more politically charged language, more in the conservative. So they'll say, oh, the leftists or the libtards or things like that. So you want to stay away from anything that's low and anything that's too far to the left, too far to the right. So honestly, the best news sources is this green box right here. All right, so you can see AP, Reuters, AFP, Bloomberg. These are news wires. So the reason why these are always going to be the best ones to look at, sort of the top of the mountain here, is because they're the ones that give the news to all these other channels that then package it up for their subscribers. And they basically are saying, what kind of packaging and pretty bow do you want to see? Whereas here, this is the goods right here. So for me, I primarily get my news from Reuters. Okay, so Reuters is a news wire, very similar to AP and Bloomberg. When I watch the nightly news, I watch ABC News, which David Muir, which is right here. Very objective. I find, in fact, with climate change, I'm often tweeting out to David Muir and World News Tonight that they're not making connections when there's floods and fires and heat waves to climate change when they should. So they're almost hyper objective, where they really could take the next step and connect the dots. So I find them to be extremely neutral when it comes to things like that. Then you see things like, The Hill, Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, Washington Post, New York Times. They start to leak a little bit to the left or the right. But the bottom line is you really should be getting your news from the green box. As you get down into the yellow box, you're starting to get a little less solid factual information. You're starting to get, if you go over here, you're starting to get, like Mother Jones, MSNBC. For example, when my wife and I are at the gym and we're running on the treadmill, and they've got every news channel up in front of us. There's like 15 screens. And it's amazing how the same story will be on MSNBC and will be on Fox News, and it's being presented in a totally different way. So if there's a news story about President Trump, MSNBC is hammering the president. If it's a story about Trump, Fox News is praising the president, and it's the exact same story. So you want to stay away from places like MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, particularly Fox News. Fox News is pretty far down in the bottom here. Some people are critical of this chart. They think Fox News is too low. But you'll see in the other charts that I show you that Fox is clearly right-leaning, and when you get to Fox Opinion, it's far right, just like some of these other sites when you get to their more opinion sides. The absolute worst are things like Breitbart, Infowars, Red State, Daily Caller. This is just garbage. It literally is propaganda. The same thing on the left side, Occupy Democrats. There's a friend of mine who posts on Facebook a lot, and he puts a lot of things up from Occupy Democrats. And I'm like, this is just not a reliable source. This is just left-leaning, progressive sort of propaganda. So if you're going to post things or you're going to talk to people about news that you have, you really should be using these sources up here in the green. So what's interesting is you notice the National Enquirer, they're not politically left or right. Right? The aliens ate my babies isn't Republican or Democrat. They just want to sell. So they basically are not really going after either party. They're just making up these crazy, fantastic stories. So while you're waiting at the checkout, you read it and you buy it. So they're not partisan at all, which I'm not surprised. Okay, so just so you can see that this is not the only chart in the world to follow. There are some other ones here. For example, this is a pretty popular one, All Sides Media. And what you can see once again is Reuters, dead center, AP, BBC, Bloomberg, NPR, Wall Street Journal News. So again, these are the places you should be getting your news from. As you move this way, CNN, their news is definitely left of center. CNN's opinion, like Chris Cuomo, I absolutely can't watch him because he just seems to go after people who are politically right, which to me is not objective. And then, of course, Fox News is to the right, Fox News opinion. People like Hannity drive me crazy because they do the exact same thing. They basically, for example, praise everything the president does and, everything that is against the president is fake news, right? So again, stay away from, honestly, if you can, stay in the center here. We'll take a look at Business Insider. This is actually more of a conservative publication, and they ask their members about the different news organizations. And you can see their own members say that Breitbart, Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, these are just not reliable, right? They're definitely too partisan. Whereas up here, once again, you see AP, which is just like Reuters, right? ABC News, the one I watch. All right. So even though the other chart showed PBS definitely leaning toward the left, people said that the news there was actually credible. And then we also have Pew Research, another famous research group. This is an interesting chart. They ask people, what do you think of the various news sources? So essentially, if you're a Democrat, what are you watching? If you're a Republican, what are you watching? And you'll notice that people who are more Republican and conservative are obviously going with Fox News. This is to the right of center. And way to the right, Breitbart, Rush Limbaugh, Shaw Hannity, Glenn Beck. This is basically just garbage. This is propaganda. And then as you go toward the left here, you see things like Slate. And I'm kind of surprised New Yorker's over here. Daily Show kind of surprised me because I always thought they picked on both sides. Colbert Report, similar kind of thing. But they're basically left of center, but not nearly as far away as some of these other ones. But again, look at this here. You got CBS, Google, Bloomberg, ABC, USA Today, NBC, CNN. I would have put personally myself a little bit more to the left. But again, when you look at all of these things, you basically get the sense of this original chart that I showed you. And that is the news organizations in this green box, more and more places that do media bias research will put these in the sort of trusted research. We know that from looking at a variety of different sources, Fox News is not trustworthy. You really don't want to go with CNN and MSNBC. And the absolute worst are things like Breitbart, Daily Caller, Red State, Occupy Democrats, Patriotics, if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. So again, given that we have this pandemic, please, I beg you all to just stay in this green box. And me personally, I go with Reuters. They have a live coronavirus update all the time. And it's basically saying, here's what happened. And they let you determine how you're going to use that information. That's it.